Hello there and welcome to another live chapter reading for Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Today I shall be reading Revel, the Howl series, Book 1 by Alden, Elway. I do not belong here among grating brick walls and soulless streets. My eyes reflect the stars shimmering in obsidian night, and the scent of the forest is heavy on my skin. Prologue. It began inconsequentially, I thought, when I went hunting before a blizzard in the dying days of Worm Moon. They say the month of March is supposed to come in like a lion and out like a lamb, but it wasn't living up to its folkloric nature this year. Looking back, I should have taken it as a warning, a cosmic sign of trouble brewing beneath the blanket of peacefulness that covered my life. Sated from my kill, the first deer I'd had in ages, I turned toward home. My head jerked up as the scent of caramel and spice wafted through the black cherry trees. I glanced to my left in time to catch the source of the smell. A hiker coming out of his tent not 50 yards from where I made my kill. My ears twitched at the sharp sound of metal on metal zipper and crunching leaves beneath his feet. Every muscle in me froze as his blue eyes locked onto me. I bolted into the trees. My human consciousness faintly echoed an admonition to me. You were seen. I should have smelled him a mile away, but I hadn't been hunting in almost a month. Winter snow was a disloyal friend to werewolves living near humans. Storms, on the other hand, erased tracks, so I seized the opportunity when it came, cloaked in threatening clouds. The intense enjoyment of chasing my prey in my wolfskin had stolen all my focus. I hadn't caught the scent of a human nearby, nor had I seen a tent until it was too late. Hadn't this human noticed the steel-grey clouds rolling over our way in crushing waves? A vast and terrible storm was coming. Why wasn't he at home? Irritation competed with a chill of fear. As I ran, I offered a silent prayer to the swaying trees. Please let him think he imagined me. Stay far away from the trails and don't let yourself be seen. This was our mantra growing up. Yet with snow coming, I assumed no one would be out hiking. I was so very wrong. I'd end up being wrong about many things that year, and this was just the beginning. Chapter 1. I chewed at my thumbnail, pacing back and forth along the snow-packed trail. I stopped for just a moment to glance at the National Forestry and Wildlife Centre. Somewhere inside, my older brother Wesley was probably buried in paperwork and definitely not anticipating the bomb I was about to drop on him. I spent the last 24 hours snowed in with my family, and each hour that passed reminded me of all the reasons I needed to come clean. The hiker was still out there, and he had absolutely seen me in wolf form. The first few hours afterward I pretended he hadn't. A couple of hours more and I'd convinced myself he thought he'd imagined me, or perhaps he'd casually mistake me for a normal wolf. Humans usually found a way to rationalise things they couldn't explain. The hiker wouldn't be any different, except I couldn't pretend I didn't see the way his cunning eyes saw me. His cunning eyes took me in, the way he consumed what he saw. I had to tell someone. Wesley, our pack second, was usually the sensible one of our leaders. Sorin, our alpha, had a distrustful side that often walked a narrow road towards paranoia. My confession would only inflame that. I can do this, I told myself out loud. Wesley won't tear my head off. Mistakes happen. It was only one guy, not a bus full of photographers. I felt foolish and insignificant as I prepared to take a step out of the tree line onto the gravel path that led to the research centre's back doors. The wind bit at my cheeks. Through the wisps of branches, the sun pressed down on me like two bright spotlights, as if it were taking my measure and finding me wanting. Just then the glass doors to the research centre flew open. My brother's elegant features were twisted into a scowl as he glided from the building, a young man storming out just behind him. Wesley glared as he jerked at the zipper on his coat, then turned to the man. His slender shoulders blocked most of my view, but I could make out the dark green sleeve of a conservation officer's jacket. I'm telling you, Wesley, I know what I saw, the man huffed. The wolf was massive, way too big to be a standard wolf. Its leg was solid, like thick, like a tree branch, and longer. This thing's head probably came up to my shoulders, and the jaw was different, slightly elongated, yet broader too. Just how close did you get to it? Wesley's voice was crisp and low. My heart collapsed in on itself as the scent of caramel and spice carried on the wind. The hiker. The hiker was here, right freaking now, telling my second about me. I grabbed the nearest tree to steady myself as the guy spoke. Trust me, I was close enough. The hiker shoved his hands in his pockets. It was standing by the patch of boulders near Yearling Creek. It stood taller than any of those rocks. Wesley let out a strained laugh. Come on, Jamie, I know for a fact that wolves don't get that size, at least not without large doses of steroids. The guide Jamie took a step closer. This isn't a joke, Wesley. Look, I do believe you, Wesley soothed, though his pitch sounded a little forced. But ask yourself, when was the last time someone even reported a wolf sighting? Besides you just now. Maybe 10 years ago? I won't worry about them because they're not a threat. I wasn't worried until I saw one. Even if these wolves were the size you say. I told you I know what I saw. This was no ordinary wolf, Wesley. This was something else. Wesley crossed his arms, the vein just beneath his left ear throbbed. Have you told anyone else what you saw? No, I haven't, Jamie replied, his voice surprisingly even. Good, then let's keep this between us, okay? Otherwise the higher-ups will be out here in a second to check the veracity of your claims. Nobody in town is going to be comfortable with the wolves that size roaming around. Poachers will come out in droves and it could be a huge mess. That's something I really don't want to see. It's our job to study the wildlife in this forest, Jamie noted. Maybe we should be tracking them, very least to monitor their population. Yes, we probably should, Wesley's voice gave the slightest hint of a crack, but wolves can have territories that span hundreds of miles, and do you know that? It could have been a wolf from a pack up in Canada, or a lone wolf passing through, something you won't ever encounter again. And I hate to be the money-minded one, but remember that we're already short-staffed because of the budget constraints. I honestly don't know where we'll get the funds to pay for more tracking equipment or man-hours to chase after something so elusive that's only been spotted once in a decade. Heavy silence punctuated the air around them. Finally, Jamie spoke. All right, but you have to promise me something. If you get any reports, any more sightings, anything at all, you tell me. I really don't feel comfortable with rangers being out there if mega-wolves are roaming our forests. Wesley let out a slow breath. Of course, just don't have your rangers going and looking for trouble either. Call me sentimental, but I'm an animal lover, and in my professional opinion, these wolves probably want to stay as far away from us as we do from them. We will leave them alone. My stomach twisted at the sharp note in Wesley's voice. It was the one reserved for intimidating pups and ending conversations. Jamie took the hint and went back inside the research centre. Wesley gave the slightest glance at the trees and said in a voice too low for a human to hear, I know you're there, Revel. My heart drummed in my chest as I let go of the tree. Wesley would have my hide, and then Soren would have it twice more after that for what I'd done, for what I had allowed to happen. Staying hidden was one of our most sacred obligations, and I had pissed on it, even if unintentionally. That wouldn't matter to the pack, though, especially now that Jamie, the hiker, had told someone. Wesley would be doing damage control for weeks, maybe months after this. Hey, I croaked, shoving my quaking hands into my jacket pockets. I guess you heard all of that, huh? Aye, my eyes slid to the doors of the research centre, the heady scent of caramel and spice and fresh snow mixed with the fearful anger rolling off my brother's skin. I swallowed hard before letting my gaze fall to my boots. Wesley sighed. I have to talk to Soren as soon as I get off work. Things just got royally fucked and I don't even know who to blame. It was probably some lone wolf out roaming, but who knows? I nodded, my words lost and fumbling about in my throat. Sorry, did you need something? You rarely drop by my work unless Mum sends you. I cleared my throat, just wanted fresh air. It sounded lame, but Wesley didn't notice or was too preoccupied to care. He checked his cell phone. I'm heading out soon, I'll give you a ride if you want. I just need to gather my things from the office. We headed into the research centre, past the solarium where several picnic tables were permanently set, each one empty and freshly cleaned. Sparkling golden streaks of sunlight danced through the floor-to-ceiling windows along the back wall. Framed photographs of nature scenes punctuated the creamy walls of either side of the table area. Several chocolate-coloured faux leather couches and ottomans made the spacious interior feel homey and welcoming. Even when the weather outside was bone-chillingly cold, the solarium was cosy and inviting. The ambulance alleviated a measure of tension in my belly, if only temporarily. Wesley had a private office on the second floor overlooking the solarium. A smooth wooden placard hung bold and proud on his door, Dr. Wesley Finley, DVM. Though we operated a full-time veterinary hospital in our hometown of Kane, Pennsylvania, Wesley split his time at the research centre, working with conservation officers on wildlife disease prevention and management. A werewolf masquerading as a veterinarian. It was both a brilliant strategic move for the pack and the most sensible career for someone like Wesley. Mum called him the most human out of all of us. He was the only one to finish high school and with human kids, having matured faster than any wolf I've ever known. When he secretly married a human girl 10 years ago, the pack nearly fractured over the formality of such a pairing. Not surprised at his choice. Sorin had to issue an order that Wesley's wife would never know our secret, to open our world, our family, to a human. It was unheard of. Wesley still had a duty to the pack. As a natural second after Alpha passed to Sorin, Wesley had to strike a balance between his two natures, wolf and man. Now at almost 33, he slipped between his two skins as easy as an oiled snake. I envied him in a way. Unlike my older brother, I never quite learned to feel whole in my human skin. I spent my 22 years folding in and out of shape that never quite fit. I loved my long human legs and dark honey-coloured hair, but they didn't compare to the slip of wind as I ran in my blue merle fur. My blood rushed with the swelling rivers. To look at the trees was to see the colours of my soul. Wesley gathered a stack of folders, carefully placing them in his satchel. I ran a finger over the gilded photo of our pack, Sorin, Wesley and Lorelei, with them matching summer sun grins. Me and Tristan, our arms slung lazily around each other's shoulders. Connor and Ethan sat cross-legged in front of Mum and Will, and beside them sat Grandad, his silver hair shining nearly white in the afternoon light. We'd taken the picture late in the fall, just days before the snows hit. John, Lorelei's mate, had organised the photo as an anniversary gift for Mum and Will after they pointed out that their family album was lacking. Later we spent the night on a pack run, or our last until after the snows melted. Clear skies had spread before us, and every star was vibrant and begging for our adulation. Tristan nipped me in the shoulder, a gesture intended as a challenge. His muzzle pointed northward just past a rocky outcropping. Digging his claws into the cool earth, he howled once and ran towards the ledge. I waited, a playful snarl rumbling in my throat. As he neared the tree line, I sprang. Chilled night air whooshed in my ears as I bolted past blurring sleepy trees. Eyes narrowed, I ran, blood singing in my veins as every muscle tightened with the sweet tension of the hunt. My twin thought he was so clever to challenge me. My mouth watered at thought of him, belly up, ears flattened in deference. His howl of near triumph rang through my ears, sending my legs into a frenzy of motion. I sucked in a final draw of breath as my head lowered and I leapt. Tristan had been mere inches from the jump-off when I soared past him, his tawny fur bristling with my rush of wind. My paws stretched into the inky black of the night before landing across the ravine in the clatter of stone and claws. Tristan yelped as he collapsed in a heap at my upturned nose. His ears twitched, then lay flat against his head, a small whine of defeat echoing around the ravine. How many times had we played this game? 1,000? 10,000? It always ended up the same way. I licked his muzzle playfully and then nipped at his ear. He had let out a barking laugh before taking off into the night once more. The guilt pressing on my chest as I took in a photo of my family's faces threatened to break more than a few ribs. My heart could only carry so much. Even if Jamie never breathed a word to anyone else, I put my pack in real danger. I put my twin and best friend in the world in danger. Has Sorin talked to you? I raised my head to glance at Wesley. About what? He needs you to work this spring. Did he say where? I asked casually, despite the sudden gnawing of irritation at having zero say in my job. Opportunities. My last job was only for the summer, but it involved cleaning rooms at a local hotel, which looking back wouldn't have been a problem except I'd been told where to work instead of being asked if I wanted to. It bit at my pride. There was a knock on the door. My nose twitched as the scent cascaded into the room just before he did. An electric hum tickled my skin as Jamie stopped not 2 feet from me. Sorry, he startled. Am I interrupting? Wesley waved a hand motioning for Jamie to come in. I didn't miss the way my brother's eyes creased ever so slightly, or the way his shoulders tightened. Not at all, I was just packing up. Jamie blinked a few times as he tore his gaze from me. A hint of pink crept up his sculpted cheeks. Peyton just handed me the report on chronic wasting disease. I won't be in tomorrow, so I wanted to drop it off before I left. He leaned in so close we nearly collided. The rich scent of him enveloped every inch of the small space. It was intoxicating and thrilling. Body wash, I decided, something expensive and masculine that pales well with wood smoke and sex. The last thought sent a rush of blood hurrying across my flesh. Horrified that Wesley might catch on, I stepped my face to plane and slumped one shoulder just enough to appear bored. Studied indifference had its uses when it came to matters considered too important for a young female to worry over. As it was, Wesley didn't look up from the folder. Revel, Jamie Eland. Jamie, this is my sister, Revel. Jamie turned to me, surprised, sending his eyebrows into his hairline. Sister? He seemed to catch himself mid-thought. It's nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. Well, your family at least. My body detached itself from all physical sensation the moment Jamie smiled. His eyes were a beautiful bright blue that seemed to light up with a secret fire. His smile was broad and radiated warmth into the air around him. Even his dark green ranger jacket played up the colour of his nut-brown hair, which was short but tousled. He looked exactly like a model in a magazine, though I doubted the man in front of me cared much about his hair. I had only caught a brief glimpse of him in the woods, and that was nothing compared to him standing before me now. Just an arm's reach away. Wesley cleared his throat, snapping me back into my skin. I suddenly felt as if everything had turned sideways. No, not sideways, ripped apart, reformed and dipped in the rich cerulean of Jamie's gaze. I was definitely losing it. We're just heading out. Thank you for dropping this off. Wesley slung a long strap of his satchel over his too-tight shoulder. I'll look over it before I come back in on Thursday. Jamie nodded once to my brother. I stole a glance at his retreating form. The world no longer made sense. It wasn't like I'd never met handsome men before. I volunteered at Wesley's office during the free pet clinics on Christmas weekend, when men filled the clinics with their dogs and ferrets. Not one of them did this to me. Don't be intimidated by him, Revel. My head snapped up. Huh? He's brilliant in the lab and dedicated to his job as the lead research ranger. Kind of a John Wayne with a medical degree type. But he isn't rash. I don't think he'll tell anyone about the wolf just yet. To be safe, I'll keep a close watch on him. I gave a light shrug but lowered my lashes for a second's benefit. Oh, yeah, of course. We looked out. If it had been anyone else, I don't want to think about it. His eyes flashed in a rather Sauron-like way. My shoulders went rigid in response, and Wesley continued. You need to have a pack meeting. This wolf, whoever it was, could still bring a shitload of trouble if it's spotted again. I hope you enjoyed the reading, and if you did, I hope you go check out the book. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.